Yeah, the call of wild's always bringing me home. Call of wild's always bringing me home. Call of wild's always bringing me
Well, hello,
home.
wild ones. Welcome to another episode of the Find Your Wild podcast. I'm very excited to have my good friend Rachel Tilseth back with us today. And she is a filmmaker, a writer, and a wonderful advocate for Wisconsin wolves. So, Rachel, thanks for coming back on the podcast.
Thanks for having me back on the podcast.
I'm very excited to have you back, although the topic we're focusing on today about Wolf 813 is obviously something that's really sad, but I think it's something also really important, especially with what's going on in our legislature here in the US with in regards to wolves. So if you want to maybe go in and explain, because you also have a short film that you produced last year talking all about and explaining about Wolf 813.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. When I talked with you, I think a couple weeks ago, we had talked about doing an anniversary show about More Than a Wolf, Wolf 18, the matriarch that was killed on Christmas Day over 2 years ago. And we thought it would be a good time to discuss what's happening and where it's at. Little did I know that when I began my investigations into it, that I would find out that it has been resolved and that Pat Quaintance, the person that killed the wolf, got a slap on his wrist. He got a $4,000 fine. And that's all we know because it's considered open and they can't divulge a lot of information on how the case went, the investigation, until he pays all of his fines. So all we know is that he got a slap on the wrist. He's out there telling people that, he got a $4,000 fine and that he's got a lot of legal bills. But, that's no problem for him because he's bragging about his hunter buddies, Hunter Nation, helping him to pay those legal fees. And that's a big one because Hunter Nation, if you're not familiar with Wisconsin wolf politics, when 2011, the wolf was delisted by the Trump administration, and right away, the DNR said, okay, this is in, January. Let's wait to have a wolf hunt in the fall, because I don't know if many of you are familiar with Wisconsin. There is a law on the book that says you have to hunt wolves if they're not on the endangered species list. Very sad.
Yeah, it's
That
a crazy law.
it's there. And so basically they sued and they said we want to hunt now. The horrible part, and for me especially, considering I've tracked wolves for such a long time, I know that February is their mating season. They're very territorial. They're out marking and scenting their areas. And, they didn't just have a wolf hunt. They were killing pregnant females. And they also, ran the hunt. They were forced to run it, to set it up in a week. The DNR is under the gun to have a wolf hunt because of that law. Setting it up in a week's time, and then, the conditions were perfect. There was a lot of snow. So then hound hunters in Wisconsin, you can hunt wolves using dogs to track and trail them. That's debatable, though. I think there's more going on than tracking and trailing them. I think
Yeah.
there can be a lot of, engaging where the dogs are tearing up the wolf, whatever but you'd have to be right there watching it to get the evidence.
Right,
So,
or maybe have a trail camera set up, but they probably destroy that if they saw it anyway.
yeah, there's just so many variables there. It was set up, to fail for the wolf, to fail for the tribe, because the tribe, is given a quota as well, because I think it was 203 wolves or something like that. I think 100 of the wolves were designated to the tribe. The tribe does not use those. But
Mhm.
these hunters went ahead and went in 3 days, went over their quota and went into the tribe's quota. So that was very sad. So anyway, to get back to Wolf 813, the one that killed her is a very big advocate for hunting wolves. He runs his own dogs on wolves. The sad thing is that he's a Wisconsin retired conservation warden, and that's debatable in
Crazy.
my eyes. That
Yeah.
he's a second offender. He was in trouble before with some other things, and so there was rumors that he baited the wolf,
Wow.
and and if you know northern Wisconsin, the very tip of Wisconsin has the Apostle Islands, and then it has the Red Cliff Tribe on the very tip there, not far from Bayfield, where this gentleman that killed the wolf lives and has land in the country. And the tribe had been monitoring her for over 10 years or more. And when I saw that she was killed, I had been following that she had been, it was like the first time that you could see wolves on video camera. This was before Voyager's Wolf Project was out there, and I was so excited to see her, to get to know a lot of things about this pack. And so then I was like, oh, I can't believe this. They killed her. 9 years old. And if you watch the film, they show pictures of her teeth and they were worn down. She was an elderly wolf. The tribe considers her a matriarch, considers that she's part of the family. Ron Nordine Jr., when I interviewed him, he talked very much about how she was a co-worker of his. She
Yeah.
did all the work. All they had to do was go out and monitor. She had the den sites, all of those things. So she was like family to him. So he was devastated when he got the news on Christmas Day. So
I
that's kind of the backstory about her.
I mean, I can't imagine, the amount of time spent, I feel like that is really missed when people are just like want to dismiss people saying, "Oh, it's just a wolf." The amount of time that it takes and the energy just to be able to connect with that wolf for that long, for that many years, and how valuable she is as a matriarch and her wisdom to be able to pass that along to her pack. I know that we talk about that a lot, that big heartbreak. And, even when you watch the film, it's still hard for him to talk about, right? Because it's such a deep loss for him and how long he had been keeping up with her. And it's just a really tragic end to such a beautiful wolf that gave so much to her family, both, the Anishinaabe that lived there and her own. So,
It's it's really sad. There is no way that this is justice. There
yeah.
in justice there would be equity for all, for the endangered species, for the tribe. It's not there at all. It's just another example of, you know, um, politicians and fringe hunters, getting their way. And I have no idea what the investigators were thinking or doing. Something did happen because he did get a fine, so they did find him guilty of something. So, but I know that when I heard it, I was just really like, oh my God. I was just like kind of sat there for almost a half a day in shock, just feeling my heart ached because it's like, again, here we go. Another wolf is killed. There's no justice. The
Yeah.
thing that is good right now is that U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services is bringing her body back to the tribe, and they'll be able to give her ceremonies and place her, in an area, however they do this. And I think that's good to bring her back home because she meant so much to them. So on
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
that's the positive thing that happened.
Yeah. Because I feel like with such sentient animals, it was funny. I was talking to my friend Erica the other day about the unfortunate orca that was left at SeaWorld, like one of the oldest ones, and she passed away. It ended up bringing up Lolita, the orca that passed away, and that her mom was still in the Salish Sea with the rest of her family, and how the day she died, they all gathered into a super pod into this one specific area the day that she died. So I just feel like in relation to wolves, orcas are called the wolves of the sea, right? And how sentient they are. And wolves are, in my mind, the same type of sentience, that hyper intelligence. They're so focused on family. Matriarchs are so important. And it just reminds me of how that piece is missing, that connection to that sentience that people don't understand. So bringing her body back is so important, just to bring this, again, to what you were saying, that her spirit lives there. I think that especially her family, they know that, right? Like, it's so important to keep that physicality of her soul in that area.
And this is, yes, that is important. There's also a little story that when I spoke with Ron, he reminded me because I told him I'm doing this podcast and I told him I'd bring this up. I think it's her daughter. She dispersed and went through Voyageurs National Park. She had a collar on that was, I think, so they could monitor her. So the tribe was still monitoring her. So she went through there and then up into Canada. So they did a little mention of that on Voyager's Wolf Project about that. So, but then
Oh, lovely.
she went all the way up into Canada, and you can hunt wolves legally in Canada, and she was killed there. They said she was
Oh,
harvested, and I hate that word because it's harvested. She's not a carrot. she she was a
yeah.
sentient. So as far as the rest of her family goes, no one really knows where they are or anything, but it's really a sad state when you think about how you were talking about the connection that we lack this connection. That is the white, society, colonials lack this because we came in and we just thought, okay, we have to clear this land, kill these animals if they're in our way. In Wisconsin, there used to be wild elk, wild antelope, wild wolves, and then they just, came in and hunted them all. They depleted the forests, and so they needed more money, income for Wisconsin. So then they had held trophy hunts. And so we have no more elk except for a herd that the DNR brought back over 20 years. I think they did bring a herd back. And then there's one, they're in northern forests, and then there's one in the southern forest too. But we used to have small buffalo, and it's just, you know, we have really devastated this, Wisconsin and the Great Lakes, taking away these animals. And then the sad thing is we took away all the food for the wild wolves, and so then didn't have anything to eat. So then they went after the livestock of the settlers and stuff. So
Yeah.
here we go. So then they placed a bounty on the wolf.
Right.
They
Yeah.
put a
As is the unfortunate story of the wolf, right? And it's this misunderstanding. This is why I think it's so important for people to be able to understand themselves more, because this is a direct correlation between not recognizing the importance and and going in deep inside yourself as well, because not recognizing how important the wolf is to the ecosystem, that they usually eat, you know the whatever is convenient, right? They're convenient hunters, cleaning off, the diseased animals, not killing the healthy animals, and that affects the ecosystem. So I just feel like it's so important, not blanketing how you view something. You have to view something deeper, and to be able to recognize and connect with that. And the more that we recognize that in ourselves, it'll be easier to connect that way with the environment and with nature.
and something someone from the tribe told me was that when you go hunting, like if you take people out and you hunt an elk, because you can hunt an elk in Wisconsin, and they like to do what they say, they place the entrails and the things that they take out of them as they gut them, cover them with leaves in the earth, and they leave those for the other beings to have. And they say they do this because then they'll stay in the forest. They won't come to your house because you're giving them something. And I thought, that's profound. You know, that's,
Yeah.
yeah, he's in the film People and Wolves movie.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
If people haven't seen our first podcast episode, or Rachel's, both of your films, the People and Wolves, as well as, Wolf 813, More Than a Wolf, I would highly recommend them. I'll link them down below as well so people can check them out, because it really goes into, you know, especially your area in Wisconsin, that area really, really well, and the connection that the Anishinaabe have. Basically, what I was explaining, I feel like they have that soul level experience to nature in the wild, and they can really truly appreciate and understand what the wolf represents with that and their connection to, the Mayangan, right?
Well, it's, you know, John Johnson Sr., he's the president of the Lac du Flambeau tribe, told me that story. And he had other stories. And, and he said it's our, we need to look after the wild animals. That's our job, is to take care of the forest and be stewards and taking care of them. And I find so many of these fringe hunters, it's very sad. I want to say that they're not ethical. They definitely are not part of the hunters that are ethical. Like in my film, there's Patrick Durkin, and he's been hunting his entire life, and he would never harm an animal on purpose. He's a hunter. You take and you eat and what you take, and he just it was appalled that they made that law, that,
Right.
he put it on the books, and he said, he wished he would have could sit down with that legislator that made that law and said, do you really want to do that? Because this is not the Wisconsin way.
Yeah.
Wisconsin is very well known for Senator Gaylord Nelson, who came up with Earth Day. We have a long history. I'd say it's been maybe the last 15 years where we've had this problem. I mean, as soon as the wolf was delisted the first time in 2011, they just, wow, we get to hunt this animal. They can, Peter David retired from Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Service as a biologist. He talks about, is it really about hunting them, or is it about revenge for some people? Or they want to take the animal just because it's a novelty. I get to kill a wolf, so there are those reasons that, people hunt them. And all these years, as much as I've been in on the advocacy part, I just can't wrap my head around somebody that would go out there and purposely kill a wolf out of revenge. Or, to me, animals, are sentient beings. They deserve our protection.
Yeah.
And, we're more similar to them than different. We're animals too.
Yeah.
I I substitute teach in schools, and kids, they mention that too. We're animals. When you say,
Oh,
you talk about animals, say, well, we're animals, they learn that and they think, and yes,
yeah.
we are. We're animals too. But, so we're supposed to be higher and, have this better
Yeah.
understanding ideals where we don't, kill them. But not everybody does that. Not everyone does. And that's what
Yeah.
Jane Goodall talked about. Jane mentioned that there is just some people that are just evil.
The fact that, people want to go out and they want to harm animals is, I have two parts to that. It's one, we're at a point in history where I just feel like we're past the point of why do we need to go out and kill these animals? I know that I talked to Diane Boyd about this too, and that her sentiment behind that is that, okay, some people view the value. She's like, I don't agree with it personally, right? Discussing value, for some reason they value that, right? But I don't think that our environment can really handle that anymore. We've taken so much from the environment, and I just don't think, maybe, in ancient times, right, when there was an overabundance of everything and we needed to genuinely survive. Okay, but we're at a point in society, kind of like you were talking about, how we're supposed to be over, and people bring that spiritual aspect in. I would try to counter that. Like, some people have gone out there and said that, oh, well, this is all, God made this for us to just be able to go and take. But I think that to challenge that viewpoint, that he made that and made us, better able to help other people. Like, if you look at, different teachings of Jesus, it's about focusing on helping people, right? And helping other sentient beings. I think that that's so important as well. And I was talking to Nani of Women for Wolves about that on our podcast episode, about how the importance of mental health, I think, is. Because I think a lot of these people could actually use mental health, because it's a really bad viewpoint. Like, why do you want to go out there and shoot a wolf? Like, what is that feeling inside of you that you need that sort of a validation, right? And just to get it for its pelts, like, it's not like you're even going to use it for its meat or anything like that, you know?
Well, I think it's our hunter-gatherer ancient instincts. And a good friend, John Trudell, had talked to me about that many years ago when I met him, talking about how we have forgotten our native roots. It's not just, Native Americans, they're familiar with theirs. We have forgotten ours. For instance, I'm Norwegian, so I could be part of the Sami people in Norway and stuff like that. And we have forgotten that, because we're so far away from, who we were. And now we're into this big industrial complex, this economy where all you have to do is flick a switch to get light. We have no idea who we are and where we came from. So some of these hunters, in my theory, I'm, not a psychologist or sociologist, but I would say that, there is that need for them to go out and hunt. And if they hunt for their family, that's, and feed their family, like in November here, it is big that everybody in Wisconsin goes out and goes deer hunting because we have all
Yeah.
these deer. And so I think that's legitimate, but at the same time,
Right.
you can go buy your beef, but that's another story too if you really want to get into it. We have
Yeah.
too we have too much beef, and our whole society is our culture is changing towards, convenience. Just buy it. You don't have to worry about it and then dispose of it. So, and that's very destructive for our planet. And one of my major concerns right now is they're trying to delist the wolf. We have this pet and whatever you call it act out there
Oh
by
yeah, I
Tom
wrote it down.
Tiffany.
It's the HR 845. Yeah.
Yes. And they passed it in the House. And, it's this revenge bill. And he is from Wisconsin, Senator Tom Tiffany, and he's been trying to delist them for about 5 years now. He wants to run for governor. God help us. That's just my political opinion. But
Fair enough.
it's to the point where, he wants to also say that you cannot judicially review them. That once they're off, his bill says once they're off, and you cannot put
That's
them back
crazy.
on. He says none of these activist judges would be able to do that because, and that's where you are in, I believe it is Montana and Idaho. That's what they did there. And look at how they treat wolves there. So Wisconsin is about to hit that road, but it has not hit the Senate yet. My thoughts are this, that make a call to your senator, because the solution could be to say, because I called my senator and said, hey, here's a compromise. Put them on the threatened list. You can downgrade them to threatened. Then you cannot hunt them. But there can be some mitigation that would, please farmers, where they could be
Right.
legally removed after you prove, that they killed your, animals or whatever. So a threatened status would be better way to go. And it makes more sense because this is insane how, okay, they were delisted in 2011, put back on not long after that, 2014, I think it was. Then
Right.
then they were delisted in 2020 and then put back on in 2021. And it's all about how they're treated when they're off the list.
Right.
So
Because it's very unfortunate, like what happened in your film, People and Wolves, is a direct effect, correlation of what happened with the delisting of wolves. What was that year that happened again?
2021.
2021. Right.
Mhm.
And it had this really awful trickle effect. And like, this is what's happening right now for people listening of what's going on with the wolves. To give a very simple breakdown, is that if they get off of the endangered species list, then it goes to the states. And unfortunately, the states have been proving that they have not had very responsible care and have been over lenient to the people that want to hunt them. Our history of America, what they have done to wolves and how they eradicated them. And, we know the very popular saying, like how wolves change rivers in Yellowstone, and we know that their importance when they're there. But to be able to then give it to states that are leaning towards hunters more favorably is not going to be great, because once you kill an animal, it's like the most severe drastic thing. And I just feel like we should be taking the time to really think of other ways. Like, why does it always have to be the most severe option? Like, why can we not figure out ways to mitigate conflict, right, with in regards to the farmers and things
Yes.
like that? Obviously, if someone wants to hunt a wolf out of the hate in their heart, that's a totally different thing, unfortunately. But, at least in regards to the farmers, to try to at least use flaggery or any other type of non lethal way to help mitigate that with the cows and stuff.
They have them on the threatened status in Minnesota, which is really good because in Minnesota you can't hunt them, but they can mitigate, with lethally removing wolves that are causing a problem. It can be overdone and, but it needs to be watched and supervised. Here in Wisconsin, we do have a new Wisconsin wolf management plan in place that took a year to develop, with many stakeholders coming in and helping to write that plan and work that plan. And with that plan, they want to, their main, thrust of that whole plan is, for the health of the gray wolf in Wisconsin. And that's their main goal. And then to educate the public and teach the public how to mitigate problems. That's the big thing. It's on the books. That statue, that nasty little statue is on there. We have to hunt them. So it's written in there about that. They want to protect prime habitat for one in there. So those areas you can't, and then there's areas where there may be a lot of depredation. Well, then you could have a hunt there, and I'm not in favor of any hunt, but they
Right.
don't have a choice because of that in Wisconsin. We don't have a choice. We're kind of stuck with that. So there's
I
so
wonder
many
what it would
problems.
take to remove that. I don't know. I'm not very good legally in that sense, so I don't know what it would take to be able to remove that. Another
It,
bill canceling it out? I don't, you know?
it's a law, so they would have to basically come in and you know, change the wording from, I think it's shall, shall hunt to maybe some other word that works better, and then the
Mm.
DNR is the one that is forced to handle that wolf hunt. They don't get a choice. They're mandated by that law. So, they do the best they can. And I have been in contact with the head wolf biologist in Wisconsin, Randy Johnson, and he is really doing his best. I talked with him at the beginning of last summer, and he had been out radio collaring wolves, and he said, they've gotten a lot of collars on them. They're doing a lot of things, good things for wolves and stuff. So, I think that's good. But when it
Yeah.
comes down to it, that law is the biggest problem. So if you're looking at, from my experience, many years of this, is when you're having to take a pack out because they are killing a farm livestock animal. It's really sad and devastating for the pack. And that pack has learned how to go in, and that cattle or livestock or whatever the livestock is, that's food. They have learned that. So then they have to take that whole pack out, which is the saddest thing and
Yeah.
then you must start over mitigating that problem, teaching that farmer how to do that, how to get guard dogs. I filmed, met some people, and they're not in my film. They didn't make the final cut, but they live up in Bayfield, and they had dogs, these big Maremma dogs that were guarding, and it was amazing. They said, she told me one time that they couldn't find their older dog. They were down to one dog left, and they didn't have that many sheep anymore, so couldn't find her. And so they went back out into the woods, and there she was sitting beside a sheep that had gotten tangled in the fence or
Oh,
something.
oh,
So, they do their job, and people in Italy, my friend Sylvia lives in the high Alps up there, and she raises these dogs, and she has sheep, and she wants the wolves there. So she has all these, and there's so many ways to mitigate. And I know I read about a farm in Wisconsin kind of that is doing that. And I was so happy to hear how they created these runs through the garden that were like, wire runs like this so the chickens could run through it,
yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
so that the hawks wouldn't get them, you know?
Right.
And then they left certain places on their land for wildlife to come through. They left some water. They really made their farm really habitat, for animals, and farm very, very friendly. And I think, you were talking about global warming crisis and all of this. This is what we need to do, is we need to start looking at that. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, everybody needs to call their senator, because I think the Senate's out. The Senate will come back in, and they'll take up Tiffany's horrible bill. Everybody needs to call their
Yeah.
senator, get them on the phone. And even if you don't get them on the phone, leave a message that says compromise, ask that they be put on the threatened list, and, taken down to the threatened list. That's what we need to
Right.
do. So that's
Right.
a big one.
Hello, Wild Ones. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Find Your Wild podcast. I have some exciting news. This April 2026, me and Dr. Carla Ionescu are taking a couple of lucky people to Greece this year. It is going to be about the goddess Artemis. So all about the goddess of the wilderness, the forest. We're going to be doing amazing things like exploring her ancient sites where she's worshipped, like Broron and Eleusis, Patras, and a couple of other places, as well as doing archery and claymaking. So I hope that you're enjoying this episode. Check out the link in the description for more information, and we would love to see you there. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
Hi, Wild Ones. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Find Your Wild podcast. This episode is sponsored by my clothing brand, Femme Sauvage, and you can find a discount code and link in the description. So check it out. We have a lot of amazing designs, and $5 of the proceeds goes to different charities. So please feel free to check it out and enjoy the rest of the episode. Thanks so much. And I'm also, to go back to your point as well about and I'll make sure to give some more information to people listening about calling your senators and everything like that. There's a lot of really great people out there giving a lot of resources and help, so I'll make sure to steer you their way. But to talk about how to live right and the importance of the wolves with the farmers is when you're giving, right, like that farm in Wisconsin that you were talking about, when you're giving the animals like the things that they need, right, with giving them water, and if you're protecting your animals with sheepdogs or whatever type of livestock you have, and they can't get those animals and you're protecting them properly, they're going to be helping to clean the areas around your farm, and you're going to have your ecosystem in check, and hopefully not have an overabundance of deer that you're probably going to need for your grazing animals, right? So all of these things are equally affected. So if you can change somebody's mindset to see like the soil will be healthier, we know how much wolves can affect the side of rivers and what their importance is in regulating ungulates. So especially if you're looking at it from a farmer's perspective, if you can help keep those animals out there, then you're going to have a healthier habitat for your own animals. So it's very important to keep that balance, right? It reminds me of two things where they made the holes for barn owls inside of barns so that they could live there and help with the mice. Maybe we can do that obviously now with the wolves. But I was just in Patagonia, and down there, I rewatched Bertie Gregory's Animals Up Close in Chile, and watching these guard dogs do that with the mountain lions, the pumas there, it really works. And they had this really great scene that they showcased how the dogs smelled the cat and went up, barked, and it went back up into the hills, and it was all the sheep were all protected. So they don't lose as many animals with this type of protection, and it keeps everybody happy in a symbiotic relationship.
Symbiotic is the key, that it's
Yes.
like perma farming, where if you plant your garden next to the wolves, let the birds catch the insects. It's
Mhm.
symbiotic, and we need to do that. Another thing that I'm working on is, like giving rights, animals rights, the rights of nature. And I think that's the biggest thing you talked about. I mean, I love whales. I mean, in the Maori people in the down in the South Pacific have given rights of nature and made a whale personhood. Humpbacks are now, people,
Beautiful.
personhood.
Yes.
And they're so valuable. You can put it in terms of financial value when you say each whale is worth, $1 million. Because when they die, they float to the bottom, and all of their body, and everything in there is dispersed into the ocean, and you think it gives back. But
Yeah.
we are at the point now where I've read some studies and things about, not really studies, but I've read some things about how the whales are, learning to avoid, you know, humans, and the shipping lanes are hitting them. And I read this interesting thing where they talked about, I don't remember which whale it was, but they were hunting them quite a bit, in the 1800s. And I think it was Moby Dick, but the whales, would at first would make this circle and protect each other. But then eventually the whales learned to go underneath those ships, underneath those currents, and let the currents take them away. That's intelligence. That's culture. They
Yeah.
learn. And Jane Goodall talks about that all the time. Her very first, thing she found was that the chimps made tools and they
Right.
learned. So how do you define a culture? Whales are a culture. They sing songs. So they're saying, okay, they sing the same song in the South Pacific, and then how do they know it up in the Arctic on the other side? And they've never met. So
Right.
these animals have a culture. And I know wolves have that too. We're just it's so frustrating because we spend so much time trying to hunt them all the time, fighting to keep them on and protect them, that
Yeah.
we're not finding that out. And from what I know and what I've seen, they're remarkable animals. I think I told you the story about my wolf that I monitored and how she was mad at me because I disrupted her pups accidentally during a, howl survey. And I just believe that they're doing so much, like back to Wolf 813, the matriarch. In her family, I don't like to call them packs. I like to call them families because they are families, they have that bond. They were taking care of a three-legged wolf. She fed a three-legged wolf,
Mm.
and took care of them. So they take care of each other. They learn from each other. They're a culture. So rights of nature right now is taking hold. The tribes in Wisconsin, I think the Menominee tribe gave rights of nature to the Menominee River. And then there's a tribe up in Ojibwe tribe up in northern Minnesota that gave rights of nature to wild rice.
Mm.
And Milwaukee County here in Wisconsin has given rights of nature. That's wonderful. And I think the Ho-Chunk are working on that now. And I would love to see the Ojibwe do the, the northern part of the state begin to do that too. Because as we go forward, they're going to hunt them, and if they can put that in place. But like anything, it's hard to enforce. They can say, like the Morai in the South Pacific have given, personhood, but now that is just a point. It's just a point where they can begin to negotiate with other countries and say, these animals, here's why we did this, and these are sentient beings. They're, and this is the challenge. I really believe that 20 years from now, this will be very well known, but you need to
Right.
plant it, the seed now. We need to begin giving rights of nature to forests, because they're in northern Wisconsin. It's part of the largest forest, that circles the globe. And,
Wow. I didn't know that.
it's, yes. And it's, and it goes all the way around into Russia and all around. So it's the
Wow.
tiger. It's like the big forest. And when I go up there, I'll take you up there because
I
you'll
can't
be
wait.
like, oh, and the Native Americans are protecting those because everything, when you get past a certain point in Wisconsin, the rivers start flowing north. They go north, they flow into the Great Lake of Superior, they go right into that. And all of that area is full of wild rice, and the tribe is trying to protect those areas because it's like a filter. It's a sponge. Once those rivers come through there and go into the lake, that's the sponge. The wild rice is there, and they're trying to protect all
Right.
of that. And I think we need to start protecting those areas, every lake, because, according to the United Nations, we have, if we're lucky, 20 years of fresh water left on Earth.
Wow.
That's
Not.
devastating. It's
Yeah.
We're growing. What is it, 9 billion people on the earth? I mean, we're standing on this really thin crust, taking and taking. We need to
Yeah.
start thinking about how we can just give back. And that's where
Yeah.
some countries are doing their green. They're talking about the green or the economic, where you think about the ecology first. Like,
Right.
if you're going to be a rich person with all that money, and they put out this, ecology, wildlife ecology, economics first, if you're doing all of that, you're going to have to pay higher taxes. You should have to pay higher taxes if you want all
Yeah.
that. It needs to be looked at. We need to look at, consider that the earth is part of it all. I hope I put that right, but we do need to
Yeah.
do
No,
that.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah. No, I feel like we're just, the point that we're just taking and taking, right? We need to learn how to better balance, and that's what I meant about even wolf hunting, right? Like, it just, the hunting of, they regulate themselves, like all this stuff. I mean, most of the people listening to this podcast know it's not science based, these decisions, which is really unfortunate. And a lot of these adding to, like, more green spaces and trying to balance out nature, is a lot of these things, once these systems are put in place, like, nature Mother Nature knows what to do, right? Like, we even see this adding more trees into cities. It's cooling down cities. It's making us use less electricity because it's cooler. So the more we add greenery to cities, that's going to help. The more we protect our forests, even kelp forests, they're a huge, huge help in helping trap CO2. All of these things are so interconnected and interwebbed. And if we can look at that and notice how important it is for us, then I think that, we could hopefully go into a better place. And it's so hard to try to convince somebody that doesn't see life that way, right? I think that that's where the problem is. It's when you get it, you get it. But how do you then translate that to help somebody else understand? Sometimes you can't force somebody to connect in that way, right?
Well, I find
So,
it
yeah.
like some religions, they're not concerned about earth because when you die, you go to another place. And then, now there are some that are saying, oh, we need to, develop our ways and head over into space. And it's like we've got this beautiful self-contained spaceship here. If we live on it, I read where an astronaut was up there for the first time and he looked down and he went, oh my gosh, that atmosphere is so thin. When he looked down, the atmosphere was really thin. And I was like, yes, what we have is so amazing. We need to quit worrying about when we die, do we, go to another world? So we shouldn't worry about this one or going up into space. Let's take care of what we have here. It's immense. It's beautiful. Our brains are the biggest problem, I think,
I know.
because
Yeah.
we think we know the answers when we just need to live and understand that we're part of Earth.
And I feel like science even backs that up. I mean, there's so many studies that it's like, the more you're out in nature, if you're bird watching, it's so good for you. There's so many of these facts that it's good for our bodies to be out in nature, to be in relation to nature and connecting to nature. It's all shown in science how good it is for us. So the more we stray away from that, the worse our mental health systems are, right? Like our nervous systems, our, mental health and everything like that. So the more that we can focus on, just I forgot what like I was leading towards, but you know what I mean.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I can tell you this story. When I was tracking, I had tracked about 5 or 6 years up there, and I got to know a raven personally. You know, I named him Turkey, and I'll tell you why I named him Turkey. Because, he thought he was really sneaky, and he would, fly behind me so I couldn't see him, but I could hear his wing beats, and then I'd hear a turkey call, and it was him pretending to be a turkey.
Pretending to be a turkey. I love it.
So they're so intelligent. I called them turkey. And those, they're just intelligent, these animals out there. And ravens work with wolves, and that's symbiotic, how I always would see them flying, then I'd know that's the way they're going towards the wolves, or else they were trying to lead me away. I don't know. But
Yeah.
they work together, and all these animals, work together. And, I've always felt a connection with animals, sometimes more than humans.
Same. Same.
So yeah, yeah. And not that, it's like they say, if you have 5 or 6 good friends, that's great, and acquaintances. But I think we just need to realize we're connected. We're all connected to each other. We are connected to the planet, to the grass, to
Yeah.
the animals. Even I'm just doing a lot of studying about herbal plants, and I'm learning that dandelions, wow, they have really good for you.
Yeah, I've
They
heard
used to
that.
eat. And I'm like, oh, plants are the first medicine, So I'm looking at all of these things and thinking about all those connections. We take our minds, and we think we know all of this, but we also have to look at our heart, what's in our heart, because they work together. The mind and the heart needs to work together. You need to feel these things as well as think about them and see, you see them. Everything comes through your being. And we need to understand that that connection can be strong if you choose that. If,
Yeah.
you choose to just keep shopping and shopping, you're going to miss out on, a lot. Like
Yeah.
Jane Goodall, did you see her last on Netflix, her story? And
I
I
still have
thought it was
not watched it yet. I still have to watch
I'll
it.
do I'll do a little spoiler here for you. She talked about how, and I'm kind of like this too. I'm more of I observe people watcher. She said she was in the
Mhm.
airport and she noticed this wren was trying hard to pick up this crumb on the floor, and all these people were walking by, and he was working really hard, and she was observing this. And he finally was able to grab that crumb and take it up to his mate and give it to her. This is something that she observed in an airport full of people, you know,
Yep.
This is stuff
Yep.
that's going on. And if you just take the time,
Yep. To
and when I
slow down.
teach, I notice with little kids, a lot of the times I just will let them talk with each other and just, sit back in the classroom and they're doing what they're doing or outside, and they communicate much better with each other than adults because that's the way it is. So it's interesting to see all these things. And so if we just maybe stop being so controlling, is that, is that, we
Yeah,
want to
I think
control?
also it has to do with like feeling feelings, like I feel like I've encountered like a couple of different kind of like toxic masculinity kind of mindsets where it's like, well, I'm not going to feel this certain emotion because that's not manly or something. No, we are human beings first. Everybody gets these same emotions. It doesn't make you manly or, not manly or womanly or not womanly to be able to feel these range of emotions. And I think it's important to do so because the more you restrict those emotions, it comes out in different places. And, people want to get that out in some way, and to help people be healthy mentally as well as physically, I think is really important. But to also add to your slowing down bit, right? To be present in the moment. You never know what you're going to find if you just slow down, like Jane Goodall watching the wren in the airport, or sometimes you'll slow down and like I was on a hike one time a couple months ago now because it was a little warmer, but I saw the coolest slug in like this little you know peat of moss, and it was just like such a beautiful thing, and just noticing how he was going into this like cute little hideaway, and I'm like, I don't know, it just was so cool, like to slow down and you notice and you appreciate almost a different culture in the lives of other animals. It makes you feel so outside of yourself that there's so many other things going on, and you're just like a little piece in this puzzle that is Earth.
There was a time I was teaching a summer camp for art where they could make things from, nature and stuff. And this young boy, I think he was like in maybe fifth grade, came up to me and he was holding this. Look at what I have, he said. Miss Tilseth, look what I have in my hand. He was holding this snail, and the snail was just sitting on his hand. The snail's head was up looking at the boy and
Oh
then looking at
wow.
us. And all the kids were like, look at that. They realized it was looking at them, and it is a sentient being. Here it is. It's aware of we're there picking him up. And he's like, I was eating or something, is probably saying. But
Right.
it's interesting when you see those things and you see these little children, they're so excited when they found him. And I said, let's carefully put him back.
Right.
So
Yeah,
they
just the
all
little
walked him
wonder.
back. And they
Yeah.
put him. Yeah, and when I bring up wolves, the kids their eyes get about this big, and they get all excited because they don't have the prejudices we do as they're young children, so they don't have those prejudices developed yet. So they're thinking, wow, they're animals, they're cool, and they want to learn more about them. And I think that the next
Yeah.
generation, is more probably going to be more aware than we are. And we're getting back to why we want to change this. We, the Native Americans, always say it's for the, seventh generation that we need to preserve the earth. I have grandkids, and I'm in this fight because I do not want to leave them a mess. I
Yeah.
don't want to leave them, a big mess. I want them to have a world. I mean, we've got it made. Like I said, you can turn the switch on, you can turn your TV on, turn up your thermostat. It wasn't that long ago, maybe a couple centuries back, that we didn't have that. We had to
Yeah.
light a
And we're
fire.
so unappreciative, right? Like we're just like, oh man, there's something wrong with this, and our ancestors are looking at us like, hey, you have it easy,
And our ancestors are with us. The tribe
Yeah.
says, in the wind, in the trees. I mean, they're all around us if we want to listen and learn. I think
Yeah, we
that's
just have to
really
slow
good.
down, right? And take the time to be present and notice like the little beauty that's in every little part of nature. It's always like to, try to go out and be local. And even by me, I always say, promise I myself I would change my mindset. Because it's not even true that I'm like, oh, there's no cool wildlife here because I live on Long Island, but there's no there's no like bears or anything like that. We just have deer, raccoons, but we have a lot of bird life. I know I've been telling you I've been looking for otters and stuff. So,
Oh,
um, yeah,
amazing.
yeah, have not found them, but I still am searching. But it's just fun because I always say it's a really beautiful, unsuccessful success because I always find something really cool and amazing while I'm out, Like there's a couple times where I've gotten some really pretty shots of double-breasted cormorants or, watching them swim
Oh,
in the little pond. You just see and I had found that bird like a couple of years ago and I had no idea what it was. And the more you go out in nature, again, like the more you're going to find something really beautiful and you'll feel so good afterwards, just like mentally. You'll feel like, oh, this just really cleared my head like of cobwebs of all this gunk. You just need it, especially for someone like myself that has, openly struggled with mental health. It's just been such a lifesaver, really, truly, to just be out and connect in nature and help clear my own mind in that way.
I will take you tracking because it's beautiful. It's like there's nothing like it.
I'm
You're
taking
you're
you up on
traveling
it,
in a car and
definitely.
yeah, you're traveling in a truck, and you have your window down so that you can look and find tracks and you're going slow. And of course, you wear a couple layers because you're going to be in and out of the vehicle checking for tracks. And it's amazing. You don't really, see the animal, but you see the signs they leave behind. And that is so cool. Speaking of otters, there was where I saw the back foot of an otter kick off and then slide on its belly down into the woods, into
Yeah.
the swamp area. And I thought, I can handle going down in there. So I followed it and followed it. And it was doing that. And, it's not there anymore. It's gone, but I'm seeing that. And I get down there and I look by these pine trees and it's in the Empire Swamp area. And I'm looking down there and I see this bed looks like it was made by deer or whatever. It's pushed down and there was hair in it. There was wolf hair in it. So I
Well,
apparently might have scared them off or that I don't know when they were, because animals over the centuries have changed how they travel. They're mostly out at night because of us. So they're more nocturnal now. So maybe I scared them off their bed or whatever. So those are just the things that you see, the connections you can make when you're out there, especially, with children. Take them out there and let them find little tracks. Take your son out.
yeah,
And, even a mouse track what is this? And it's a mouse, and every animal has a unique print.
yeah.
And
And
you
they're all
can get a,
connected
a
to each
book
other
on
in
it.
some way. The
Yeah,
mouse is connected to
yeah, they
the
all have
owl or the hawk
yeah,
or
but
whatever.
they all have a pad and they
Right.
have fingers and toes, and so then you learn shape of the pad means okay, that's a wolf. Oh, the wolf track is really tight together. A dog is kind of spread out. But you learn all these things as you go out there. I'm at the point where if I go out taking a hike, I'm instinctively looking down like this, just looking for,
Right.
everything because it's natural now that you look down, that I look down and see. So,
And it's really
but
connecting
there's,
you
we
with
could we
your ancient instincts, right? Like you're really connected with your ancient self, like your really human animal self, to be able to get in that mindset of being in the woods and tracking and noticing all those little things. This was a really important episode to talk about all, like, the side effects, right, of a couple of different things, like what's going on in the house with the HR 845 bill trying to take wolves off of the endangered species list. Definitely call your senators. I'll try to list below some information for people listening to try to help the wolves because they don't have a voice, so we have to do it for them. I don't even think we would be here right now talking with our society if we didn't have wolves, if we didn't have that ancient partnership with them. So just another valid point there, but the unfortunate trickle effect that has with how then the states get control and the states then have, there's been a lot of unfortunate consequences, fatal and deadly consequences for wolves because of this down trickle effect that that unfortunately has. So, and I think it's also important to relate that back to mental health and the spiritual connection that people have with nature too. I think that there's a really big importance that we need to focus on in regards to maybe like hunters, mental health and why people are feeling that way. I think it's, again, there's a difference between people that are farmers looking after their livestock. I think there's almost an easier way to mitigate that we can help be in the middle than in regards to people doing it out of straight malice. There's obviously, with the unfortunate killing of the matriarch Wolf 813 that's in your film, and I'll link that below as well. It's a short film. It's less than 15 minutes, so I would highly recommend just watching it. It gives great detail, and from your friend's perspective on his connection. What's his name again, Rachel? The tracker?
Ron Nardine Jr.
With
Yeah.
her. But it's, and then getting a slap on the wrist, right? It's very similar to what happened with Cody Roberts with the $200 fine and whatever. I know that they're trying to bring him back and re-prosecute him, but that's, again, we're still waiting to hear on that as well. So yeah, to try to get these bills ahead of time so these consequences don't happen. But yeah.
Yes, and there is a law in Wisconsin that does protect wild animals. I don't remember the year exactly, but there were these young men that were hunting and using snowmobiles to run deer down and torturing them, and they got caught. So they did, in those circumstances, deem that as abuse, animal abuse, and lump it in with the other laws in Wisconsin. So we do have that law. The problem is you need to enforce it. You need to catch them, and then enforce it. And sometimes the justice isn't strong enough, like what we had with 813, a $4,000 fine for killing an endangered
Yeah.
species that lived in the forest, raised 9 generation of puppies. It's just not good. Not good. There was no justice there. I'm sad. Yeah. Disappointed.
Very sad too.
Very, very disappointed.
Yeah, I was just going to add, the only consolation is that her body will be brought home to the tribe, but tell people where they can watch it as well.
You can go onto YouTube. It's free on YouTube, and you can go on there and type in the search bar, Wolf 813, and you should come up to it. You can watch it. Please leave some comments, your thoughts on it. I'd like to hear from you. And then People and Wolves, also go in there, People Wolves movie in the search bar, and you'll come up with that one. And then my blog is at Wolves of Douglas County, Wisconsin, where there's some more information on there. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, you're amazing, Rachel. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. I'll make sure to directly link those below so it's easy for people to find it and read and watch the amazing work that you've put out to bring awareness to what's going on in Wisconsin. So thank you so much. And I always love talking with you, and I feel like I can always chat with you for forever. Very important stuff that we touched on today, and definitely people listening, if you could please take the time to call your senators for wolves, we would all really appreciate it. And we got to protect them, because we wouldn't be here without wolves. And yeah, so thank you so much, wild ones, for listening. Call your senators, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
Flowing to the sea, I feel the energy of life force flowing all through me, and I'll allow it all to dance with my body and play, and no one could ever convince me to give my power away.